Today, we're talking about Mansa Musa, a prince whose greatest strength was simply listening.
So what really makes a ruler powerful? Is it all about conquest and gold? Well, maybe not. In his land of Mali, riches weren't just gold. What really mattered was wisdom and justice.
And right there, in that empire, lived a pretty quiet prince named Mansa Kankan Musa. He learned to rule in a unique way. He just listened to everyone, elders, travelers, you name it. See, his goal wasn't about conquering new lands. It was all about understanding his own people. But as it often does, fate had a major plot twist waiting for this thoughtful prince. Out of nowhere, the king at the time just disappeared, vanished without a trace.
Under the sun where the rivers collide, a kingdom of gold where the eagles reside. Dust rises slow from the march of our feet. The earth hums low where the ancients meet. Sons of the sun, we rise, we rise.
We're going to step back in time. We're going to explore the story of one of history's most fascinating and, yes, wealthiest figures, Mansa Musa. But here's the thing. This isn't just a story about gold. Nope, it's about a completely different kind of power. One that starts not with a sword, but with just listening. So before we even get to the man himself, you have to understand the world he was born into. The Mali Empire, it was unbelievably rich in gold, for sure. But its people, they measured true wealth a little differently. For them, it was this incredible trinity of values. First wisdom, then justice, and then gold. And that wasn't just some catchy phrase. It was the bedrock of their whole society. It was a philosophy that would go on to shape one of history's greatest leaders. So yeah, we are diving right into Mali's golden age. And we're not just talking about material riches here. We're talking about a place rich with ideas, with a complex, vibrant culture. And honestly, getting a feel for this unique world is the key to unlocking the entire story of Mansa Musa. And here he is, Mansa Kankan Musa. He was born into the Keita dynasty, the ruling family of Mali. And this was no ordinary family tree. He was a direct descendant of the legendary Sundiata Keita, the original Lion King who founded the entire empire. So from the moment he was born, Musa was carrying the weight of a truly monumental legacy on his shoulders. But a famous last name doesn't just automatically make you a great leader, right? Musa's path to the throne wasn't really defined by what he said, but by a much, much rarer skill, what he heard. His real power was being forged in silence. Think about it. In an age of warrior kings, where your power was pretty much measured by the strength of your sword arm, Musa was, he was different. He wasn't loud or aggressive. He wasn't itching for a fight. His strength was being built in a much quieter, but you could argue far more powerful place, the pursuit of knowledge. His whole education was basically a living library, drawn from every single corner of his society. He sought out the wisdom of the elders, the ones who held the deep history of his people. He debated with scholars who brought learning from all over the known world. He would listen to travelers and their firsthand accounts of these faraway lands. And crucially, he absorbed the epic tales from the griots, these master storytellers who were basically the living, breathing archives of West African history. This gave him a complete 360-degree view of his world. And you know what all of this listening led to? A completely profound leadership philosophy. Musa realized that true, lasting power wasn't found in conquest, and just taking things from other people. He understood that real strength, real power, came from strategic generosity, from giving wisely to build loyalty, stability, and prosperity. And that idea would pretty much define his entire reign. But here's the twist. Musa wasn't actually supposed to be king, at least not yet. His path to the throne was cleared by a sudden, mysterious, and incredibly dramatic event. So get this. The king at the time, his predecessor, was this hugely ambitious explorer. He became completely obsessed with what was on the other side of the huge, unknown Atlantic Ocean. So he put together this massive fleet and set off on an epic expedition. And he never came back. Just vanished. Can you imagine the power vacuum, the mystery, the total uncertainty that must have followed? With the king lost at sea, destiny came calling. All of a sudden, the quiet prince, the listener, found the crown of the entire Mali Empire resting squarely on his head. The weight of that must have been absolutely immense. So how did the kingdom react? I mean, the throne was now occupied by a man known more for his thoughts than for his sword. An entire empire just watched and waited and wondered. You could practically feel the suspense in the air. From the busy markets of Timbuktu to the gold mines in the south, every single eye was on Musa. This quiet scholar, this listener, could he really command the respect of generals, the loyalty of the people? The stability of the whole empire was just hanging in the balance. It all just boiled down to this one single pivotal question. In a world that so often confused strength with noise and aggression, could a quiet man actually be strong enough to lead one of the world's great empires? And that is where our story has to pause, for now. See, Musa wouldn't answer his doubters with some big speech or a royal proclamation. Oh no, his response would be an action, one that would be written across the continent in gold and grand architecture. And that is a story we will continue in part 2. So as we close out part 1, I want to leave you with this to think about. What really defines true power? Is it about loud commands and forceful conquest? Or can it be found in quiet wisdom, in deep listening, and in really strategic generosity?
Dust rises slow from the march of our feet. The earth hums low where the ancients meet. Sons of the sun, we rise, we rise under the skies where the spirit flies. Drums in our chests, hearts made of fire. Sons of the sun, we climb, we aspire.
So, we've talked about the legendary wealth of Mansa Musa. But here's the thing, what makes a ruler truly great isn't just their gold. In this part, we're diving into the real foundation of his power, justice. So let me ask you, what really makes a leader great? Is it a massive army, a treasury overflowing with gold, or is it something more? That's the question we're digging into. And believe me, Mansa Musa's story gives us a pretty incredible answer. Under Mansa Musa, the Mali Empire didn't just get bigger, it entered its golden age. We're talking about an empire that was stable, secure, and so prosperous that it became a major player on the world stage, truly beyond imagination. And look, this kind of success doesn't just happen by accident. Musa built his entire empire on 4 key pillars. He made sure traders were protected, he championed education, he showed deep respect for spiritual leaders, and all of this work to strengthen the empire from the inside out. And okay, let's talk about the gold. There was an unbelievable amount of it just pouring out of Mali's mines. The empire was fabulously wealthy. But here's the crucial difference. For Mansa Musa, that wealth wasn't the goal. It was a tool. And this is really the core of his whole philosophy, the thing that makes him stand out. He put justice before gold. He believed that a kingdom's true purpose was to serve all of its people. This really says it all, doesn't it? The empire's incredible resources weren't just for building fancy palaces or for his own personal projects. Nope, Musa was firm on this. The nation's wealth was there to serve the nation's people. You know, this quote is just so powerful. Stop and think about what that really means. It paints a picture of a society where people actually trusted the system, where fairness was the guiding principle, and where being safe wasn't a luxury, but a basic right for everyone. And this wasn't just a nice idea, it had a huge real-world impact. Trade routes, even those incredibly dangerous crossings through the desert, became secure. Merchants could travel for hundreds and hundreds of miles, completely confident that they were protected. That security became the engine of Mali's entire economy. So, Mansa Musa had built this incredible kingdom. It was wealthy, it was safe, it was just, and honestly, for most rulers, that would have been enough, right? But his vision, his dream, it stretched far beyond the borders of Mali. And we're not talking about a simple political strategy here. This was a deep, personal dream, a vision that would push him to start one of the most amazing journeys in all of human history. So what was this dream? It was huge. First, he wanted to connect his powerful empire to the rest of the world. But it was more than that. He wanted to place Africa right at the center of the historical map, to announce to everyone that a major new power had arrived. And he wasn't going to do this with an army. He was going to do it with a pilgrimage, a journey so grand, so rich, and so influential that it would put Mali on the map forever and shake other empires to their very core.
The djembe calls a pause divine, a rhythm of kings through endless time.
We are the roots, the tree, the flame. We are the echoes. Remember our name.
Sons of the sun, we rise, we rise under the skies where the spirit flies. Drums in our chests, hearts made of fire. Sons of the sun, we carry the sky.
Okay, so let's talk about a journey so incredibly lavish, so unbelievably extravagant, that it literally broke the economy of an entire region. This is the story of one man's pilgrimage, a literal river of gold that put his West African empire on the world map for good. The year is 1324. A journey kicks off from the heart of the Malian Empire, which, you have to understand, was fantastically wealthy, controlling West Africa's gold and salt trade. And this was an epic trek for sure. But honestly, the distance wasn't even the most extraordinary part. Look, that's not me exaggerating. That's what people who were there at the time said. They described it in these almost mythical terms. And to really get why, you have to try and picture the sheer scale of what was happening. It was basically a moving city made of gold. So what does a river of gold actually look like in real life? Let's try and break down just how huge this caravan was as it snaked its way across the Sahara Desert. First, just try to wrap your head around the number of people. We're not talking about some small royal entourage here. We are talking about tens of thousands of people, all moving as one. You had an entire army marching along, for security, a clear sign of the empire's military power. But it wasn't just about muscle. Mansa Musa also brought along top scholars and artists, sending a message that his empire was a center for culture and deep thinking. And then you have thousands upon thousands of servants and staff just to handle the logistics for this mobile city. And then, the main event, the part everyone remembers, countless camels, not carrying food or water, but loaded down with tons and tons of pure, glittering gold. Now, a river of gold like that doesn't just flow through the desert without anyone noticing. It made a very important stop that sent absolute shockwaves through the global economy, specifically in the city of Cairo. When he got to Cairo, Mansa Musa's generosity was just off the charts. It was an act of religious charity, and he just started handing out gold to the poor, to officials, to pretty much anyone he met. He gave away so much of it that he literally flooded the market. And here is the absolutely staggering result of all that generosity. It's a perfect real-world lesson in supply and demand. See, before Musa's visit, gold was rare, its value was high and stable. But by dumping so much of it into the economy, he single-handedly crashed its value. And this wasn't just a tiny dip either. The economy of the entire region was thrown into chaos for more than a decade. Right. So when you cause an economic event that massive, people are going to talk. And news of this unbelievably rich king and his golden journey spread like wildfire across the Mediterranean and into Europe. You've got kings and rulers in Europe and the Middle East who were just gobsmacked. They had no idea this kind of wealth even existed in West Africa. And at the same time, you have scholars and merchants arguing about it. Was this real charity, or was it just a reckless move that wrecked a major economy? But no matter what people were debating, one thing became crystal clear. Before this trip, the Malian Empire was kind of a mystery to a lot of the world. After this trip, mapmakers from Europe to the Middle East were all adding a new, very important name to their maps: Mali. So this all begs a pretty big question, right? Was this whole pilgrimage just a massive, elaborate flex? A king just showing off how rich he was? Or was there something much, much deeper going on? Because the thing is, this journey was way more than a religious obligation, and it was more than just an economic event. It was a very carefully planned declaration of power aimed at the entire world. Every soldier, every scholar, every single ounce of gold was part of a bigger message. Mansa Musa was using his pilgrimage to make a powerful, undeniable statement. He was declaring that his continent was not some unknown, faraway place. It was a center of incredible wealth, power, and civilization. It was a major player on the world stage, and it could not be ignored any longer. And that was the ultimate message, and it was unmistakable. Africa is powerful. Powerful in its money, powerful in its faith, powerful in its culture, and absolutely powerful in its ability to influence the world, far beyond its own borders. You know, in the end, Mansa Musa's pilgrimage wasn't just a trip. It was one of the most effective rebranding campaigns in history. It completely changed how the world saw an entire continent. Which really leaves us with one final thought. When does a single journey have the power to completely reshape the world's map?
The flame. We are the echoes. Remember our name.
Sons of the sun, we rise, we rise under the skies where the spirit flies. Drums in our chests, hearts made of fire. Sons of the sun, we carry the sky.
Shadow stretch long across the plains. The winds whisper songs of ancient rain.
So when you hear the name Mansa Musa, what's the first thing that pops into your head? It's gold, right? Just mountains of it. So much gold that his trip to Mecca literally broke economies along the way. But what if I told you that whole incredible story is just a footnote? Yeah, his real legacy wasn't built on gold at all, but on something way, way more valuable. And this right here, this is the whole key. This single line really just flips the entire script on one of the wealthiest people in history. You see, it's not about what he spent, it's about what he built. And that idea is going to guide us through this whole incredible story. All right, so let's set the scene. Our story really kicks off not during that famous gold-drenched pilgrimage, but right at the end of it, on his journey home. Because this is where Mansa Musa's true mission really began. He was coming back with a completely new kind of treasure. Right, because everyone always talks about the gold he was handing out, but the really important part is what he brought back with him. His travels through places like Cairo, these great centers of the Islamic world, well, that wasn't just a sightseeing tour. It was a recruitment mission for the mind. And just look at the haul he came back with. We're not talking about souvenirs here. He was importing human capital. Architects to literally build a new world, teachers to fill it with wisdom, books to pack its libraries, and brand new ideas to spark a true renaissance. These weren't just things, they were the actual seeds of a cultural revolution. So this brings us to the next phase. He's got the dream team, right? He's got the big ideas. Now what? Well, now he had to build the actual infrastructure to put it all to work. He wasn't just building an empire of land anymore, he was building an empire of the mind. And we're not just talking about a couple of fancy new buildings. No way. This was a massive, ambitious vision to completely reshape his kingdom. He wanted to transform it from a place known for its gold into a global destination for scholarship and culture. His whole strategy was built on these three pillars, the real foundations for a society built on knowledge. Mosques that were more than just places of worship. They were community and learning hubs. Libraries to hold all the wisdom of the world. And of course, universities and schools to create brand new knowledge. Every single one was a deliberate investment in his people's future. And all of this investment, all of this incredible vision, it all had an epicenter. A legendary city that would become the absolute crown jewel of his intellectual empire. You have to understand, Timbuktu wasn't just some random city in the Mali Empire. Under Mansa Musa's direct guidance, it was purposefully sculpted, cultivated to become this shining beacon, a magnet for the greatest minds of that entire era. Now, to really get how huge this was, you gotta look at the competition. He wasn't just building a little regional college. He put Timbuktu on the world stage, going head-to-head with the long-established intellectual powerhouses of the day, places like Cairo and Baghdad. I mean, to create a rival to them in academic prestige, that is an absolutely incredible accomplishment. And guess what? It worked. Man, did it work. The reputation of Timbuktu spread like wildfire. The best and brightest minds didn't just hear about it. They literally packed their bags and traveled for months, sometimes even years, just to get there and study. It became a true global destination for anyone seeking knowledge. So what was everybody studying there? This wasn't just basic stuff. We are talking about advanced mathematics and astronomy, really sophisticated legal theory, and profound, beautiful works of poetry. This just goes to show you the incredible depth and the sheer breadth of the intellectual life that Mansa Musa was nurturing. Which brings us full circle, right back to our central theme. After seeing all this, now we can really, truly understand his lasting impact and the powerful, eternal message he left for all of us. I mean, think about it. Gold buys power, it builds walls, sure, but it's finite. It can be spent, it can be lost, it can be stolen. But knowledge? That's a whole different ballgame. Knowledge builds a foundation that lasts for generations. It's infinite. It grows, it spreads, and it endures forever. That was his real investment. So yeah, the story about the gold is exciting, it's jaw-dropping, I get it. But in the grand scheme of things, it's just the introduction. The real epic, the achievement that truly defined an entire era and still echoes through history today, was his transformation of the Mali Empire into this timeless center of learning. And that kind of leaves us with this one big thought, doesn't it? Mansa Musa had more material wealth than almost anyone who has ever lived, but he chose to build his legacy out of ideas. It really makes you wonder, what's temporary and what truly builds for eternity? What really defines a great legacy?
Hearts made of fire, sons of the sun, we carry the sky.
Shadow stretch long across the plains. The winds whisper songs of ancient
When I say the word legacy, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Giant monuments? Heaps of money? Well, today, we're going to dig into that exact question, and we're going to do it by looking at the story of, honestly, one of the most fascinating and ridiculously wealthy people in all of history, Mansa Musa.
And that really gets you thinking, right? How do you even measure someone's impact? Is it about the gold they piled up? Or is it something else entirely, something you can't even hold in your hand? Let's just keep that question simmering in the back of our minds as we go.
So, to really get into this story, we're actually going to start at a kind of weird place. We're starting at the end.
That's right. Mansa Kankan Musa, the legendary ruler of the Mali Empire, he died. And you'd think, okay, that's it. Story over.
But was it really the end? Because even though he was gone, his footsteps, they are deeply carved into the pages of history. So yeah, death is a fact, but his impact? That's what turned into a legend.
So what were these legendary footsteps all about? Well, for hundreds of years, pretty much everyone thought they were paved with solid gold.
And you can literally see why. For centuries after his incredible journey to Mecca, when European mapmakers looked at West Africa, they didn't just see a blank spot on the map. No way. They saw a powerhouse. They drew the Mali Empire, and smack in the middle, they put Mansa Musa, holding this giant nugget of gold. And this wasn't just some fancy artwork, It was a huge statement. It told the world that Africa was a major player, a place of incredible wealth and importance.
But here's the thing. The gold, as mind-blowing as it was, it isn't the whole picture. Not even close. His real legacy is about a totally different kind of wealth, something that lasts a lot longer than gold.
What it all comes down to is this one powerful lesson that's still ringing true today. Real wealth, true wealth, it's not about what you manage to hoard for yourself. It's about what you actually leave behind for everyone else. And this is a great way to think about it. You've got your hoarded riches on one side, stuff you can touch, but it disappears. It's fleeting. Then on the other side, you've got what you leave behind. You can't touch it, but it lasts. It endures. Think about it. Mansa Musa's gold actually messed up entire economies for a while because there was so much of it. But the universities and the libraries he built in Timbuktu, those became legendary centers of learning for generations to come.
And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. This part of his legacy is almost like a myth, a message that has proven to be worth way more than all the gold in his empire.
The griots, the traditional storytellers and historians of West Africa, they have this incredibly beautiful way of putting it. They say that if you listen closely, even today, the wind that blows across the Sahara at night, it still carries his voice. It carries his final piece of wisdom.
And what is that message? Riches fade, wisdom rules forever. So simple, right? All that gold is long gone. But that idea, the idea that your legacy is built on what you give to the world, not what you take from it, that's still here.
So Mansa Musa's footsteps left an echo that we can still hear all these centuries later. And his story really just leaves us with one final big question to ask ourselves. What will your echo be?